The Spotlight, shining a light on podcasts and videos that have caught our attention.
Hi and welcome to The Spotlight. I'm Jen Spiker, and today I'm continuing to highlight a brand new podcast series that's been added to the Vision app. Sunburnt Souls is hosted by Dave Quak, a Baptist pastor with bipolar. In this episode of the podcast, Dave's guest is his wife, Jess, who has been sharing her journey of living with a spouse with mental illness. We'll pick up the conversation as Jess explains there have been times when she has battled mental ill health as well.
The Spotlight with Jen Spiker.
When we were initially dating and married, I had my own mental health challenges, and that was really interesting having those two bounce off each other.
I was far from diagnosed. Like, I just thought I was a maniac.
Yeah, but in that as well, like I knew you. And I knew that these were aspects of your personality that I was marrying, and I committed to you. Like I stood before God and I made a vow that this is the person who I'm going to be faithful with. And not just faithful as in not straying, but faithfully love the way that God loves me, continuing to forgive each day, starting each day fresh. Yeah. That's what I made the commitment to do. Whether or not you were diagnosed then or not, you're still you. Yeah. Although you have, looking back, we have changed a lot, but thankfully, because of God's grace, for the better. Yeah. In so many ways. But yeah, we did have our own challenges at the start in a big way, but then like my physical health has not been fantastic over the years, and you've been there for me in that, even when I know that it's hard, and somewhat knowing that it's hard and yet you're still choosing to do it, even that in and of itself is a blessing, because it is that you are choosing to love me, and that's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah. Thank you. I think the hard thing is that I know that it's going to be a matter of time before I wine and dine you for another sales pitch, or some idea is going to get stuck in my head and I'm going to be, waiting to be like, okay, Jess is going to get on board and playing all the angles. Like, and it's not that honestly that I don't have self-control. It's just that it just seems to make so much sense to me. And that's part of the burden I have to bear, and I've got to learn to grow in that. Maybe I need some better protective mechanisms or a filter of some sort, maybe. I only can make a decision if I've thought about it for 2 weeks or 2 months or whatever. Yeah. Before pulling the trigger, because usually things leave as fast as they come.
Oh, yeah. And that's where it's actually been really interesting in recent years, having the kids come along in your mental health journey, because I think that was really difficult, probably personally for me, when we knew what was going on. I probably suspected long before you did that you actually had bipolar. Yeah. And just sort of adjusted accordingly. But for the kids, it could be confusing when, Dad's a bit like this one day, but he's like that the other day. And you mean 100% what you're saying on day one and day two, but they're different things. Yeah. So bringing them along the journey and giving them an understanding, they are such beautiful and compassionate children. Yeah. It's been really good for them, I think, to not that we burden them with the hard aspects. There's things that you still sort of shelter them from, but I remember, Milani joking at the table when you recently had an idea.
Which idea was it?
So it was a few ideas ago, but you were like, we should.
A few ideas ago.
It was a few ideas ago, but you were like, look, guys, I've got all these boat engines, and let's just spend some time and we'll learn how to fix them up together. And that will be such a fun project to do. And the kids were like, Dad, you don't know how to do any of this stuff, and we don't have this kind of time. and Milani, our daughter, turns to me and she goes, give it 3 weeks.
She's very intuitive. Yeah. Look, it made sense because we'd already brought the engine hoist, right? So I'm like, well, I bought the engine hoist to put just the original engine. I'm like, well, we've got the hoist, still a few more. And it turns out I hate
Yeah, you hate that stuff.
And I don't even know anything about it.
Yeah, and so sometimes your ideas will even be just so ludicrous for who you are, where you go, if you thought about this when you were thinking really well, you would know that this is something you would actually hate in real life. In your mind, it's a great idea right now, but the reality of it you hate. And so I think in recent years, and I think particularly the medication has been a game changer, such a blessing from God that it has really helped. And it's also been helpful for me. We have some friends. One of the couple has been diagnosed with bipolar also, and it's been really healthy for us, and it's been a really lovely thing that you and this other person with bipolar have been able to get together at times and discuss, this is hard and I don't think that we're being understood and, those sorts of things. And then the partner who doesn't have bipolar and I will also sometimes, get together and go, how are you going? And also there's always a bit of fun of like, okay, tell me what's happened. And it's kind of like what's happening in the reality show of your life, like what's been the most recent crazy thing that's going on there. And sometimes it's like you laugh so you don't cry, but there's a lot of laughter, and knowing that God has got us and got this, and it does give you the freedom to laugh and just go, wow, our life is wild, and there's hard things that come with it, but that's I'm never going to have an issue in our marriage where I'm like, wow, we're so boring.
No, it's not boring. Earlier you said like when we're having conversations and both are adamant that we're right.
Yeah.
That I think that's a universal thing. Everyone who's having an argument thinks they're right, unless they just like to argue. But in our case, it is accentuated because you've got such high moral standards, which doesn't come from a place of legalism. I mean,
that did used to be an issue with us.
That was a part of our life in the early days. I thought you were a legalist, but it does come from a place of conviction. So, and it comes from a place of genuine relationship with Jesus. So you're not doing it because you're trying to earn salvation. You're doing it because you love him, and it's who you are.
Yeah.
And you've never pretended not to do that. I guess it's just it's difficult when we just approach life so differently.
Yeah.
I just want to encourage anyone else who's in a relationship with someone with mental health issues that even though you're so different sometimes, it still is workable.
Yeah, that's right.
Like I'm convinced that we are going to not get divorced.
Good.
It's good, eh? It's 20 years in and it's just getting better. It's getting stranger sometimes because my mental health's getting more complex. I think that there needs to still remain that steadfastness to say, we in our marriage vows, we said through better and worse and thick and thin, we were going to stay together.
Yeah.
So it is a choice, but it's just a really hard choice sometimes.
Yeah. And that's where I think it's really important that the love that God has for us is really real to us because we need that love, that all-consuming love that is so beyond all our messed upness that we experience already in ourselves so that we have something to share in our marriage.
Yeah.
I think without that, I don't know where we would be.
Without God, we wouldn't have made it because there'd be no reason to push through the hardest times. There was no higher covenant otherwise. Yeah,
it would have been really beyond my ability. Yeah. And I think even for you, it would have been beyond yours as well. There's a great way in which God uses us and our differences and the way that we work together to show as well that he uses people who are so different and he loves people who are so different.
Yeah.
And I know, early on in ministry even when we were doing things together and we would have a hard week and you were doing things that I wouldn't agree with and I was like, God, how could you use this guy? Yeah. Like, have you seen him? Because I have. And what's the deal? Like, he does not deserve to be in this position. He doesn't deserve to be such a participant of your grace. And it was a real humbling thing for me because I came to realize that, no, I am just as undeserving.
Yeah.
And I am just as in need of his grace. And I think without seeing the way that you have a genuine relationship with God, I could have become down the track legalistic, even though it came from a very good place, that, Jesus is love for me, and I just adore him for all that he's done, the reality of the way that he's made his love real to me each and every day. But that could have become twisted had I not had you in my life. For me to see the grace of God in someone so different from me, and using you so differently to me, but in a real complimentary way, and see the fruit of it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, for me, like on days that are really hard and days when you're not necessarily being a great husband, I got to, come back to where God sort of whispered in my heart one day, I'm going to stand before him at the end of this life, and he's not going to ask me how good of a job you did as a husband. Yeah. He's going to ask me how I loved as a wife, and was it like he loved me?
Yeah.
And so that's really key, I think. And I think that, his grace has been really great in our marriage.
I think you're right. And I think that passage, we often hear it. It says, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everybody. Like at the end of the day, I can't control you. You can't control me.
Yeah.
We can do our best to live at peace with each other. And that's sort of it.
Yeah.
I do reckon I've got like a 89% chance that we're going to have a fun couple of decades ahead. There's going to be 89% great times and then 11% abrasiveness, and I can handle those ratios. I reckon we can. In my mania, I did the research and worked out the percentages. So, but I mean, it's just rubbing off on each other. Like the other day, Jess just pointed out earlier that I often get ideas of things that I'd want to do, that I think I'd want to do, and I'd really actually hate them. Lately, it's been thinking about buying a farm. I think it's because my friend's looking at buying a farm, but like I'm going to buy a farm, raising animals and having an orchard and stuff. And then yesterday I mowed the lawn, and our lawn is 459 square meters, and I hated every second of it. You know what I mean? Like I'm swearing at the mower and like hating the sweat and, so those 11% of the times they're going to be abrasive, but we're going to get through.
Yeah.
Just as we start to wind up, Jess, what would you say to partners of people with mental health conditions when it comes to their own spirituality? Like minister to them. What would you, if you're in a room with them, you're their pastor because you're a pastor in your own right. Yeah. What would you say to them?
Take the scriptures seriously for what they actually say. For me, it's been such a beautiful thing to run to the Psalms in times when I'm angry or hurt, and to know that God is my hiding place and he is my rock and he's my shelter, and I can go to him to get all that I need. But also the call of Jesus when he says, look, follow me, and then he walks to the cross and he puts up with people around him who are difficult. And like I look at some of the people in scripture and I'm like, Peter, he reminds me of Dave.
Mate, I'd love to lop someone's ear off.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's like Jesus. It's not like he dealt with perfect people. No. And he did it with love and beauty and grace. And that's the kind of person that I want to be too. For those people who are dealing with people in their life who have mental health issues, and particularly bipolar, it is hard. Know that that's okay, that it's hard, and that you're seeing that, that can be really tricky. And I know that everyone is the same, and not everyone would be dealing with it as well as Dave does. Not that he's always dealt with it perfectly, but there are things that can be really difficult that come with this struggle, and it's okay that it's hard. It's okay, and you're going to be okay, and God has got you, so he needs to be your rock, and lean into that.
On the Spotlight, we've been listening to more of Dave and Jess Quak's story of navigating the challenges of mental illness within marriage. Jess shared some great tips for fostering communication, empathy and unity when facing challenges together. You can listen to this full interview and other episodes by tapping the podcast tab and searching for Sunburnt Souls. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss new episodes when they're added each week. If you have a favourite podcast or video series that you'd like to hear featured on the Spotlight, click contact us at vision.org.au and share the link. My name is Jen Spiker. Join me next time as I share another podcast or video that deserves highlighting.
For more great podcasts and videos like the one featured today, check out vision.org.au or the free Vision app.